You're watching the Brotherhood of Gaming video game show, the only video game show that can quote the entire Mortal Kombat movie word for word. I'm your host, Eugene Morris. Well, with Mortal Kombat X right around the corner, we decided for this episode of Sega Genesis vs. Super Nintendo to take a look at the very first Mortal Kombat video game, and we'd like to thank this YouTuber for making that suggestion. Well, when it comes to Mortal Kombat, it's definitely on the top tier when it comes to fighting games. But after all these years, how does the first one stack up? Let's find out. In 1992, Midway Games changed the face of arcades forever. They introduced the world to Mortal Kombat. It tells the story of Liu Kang, a young monk who enters a dark tournament known as Mortal Kombat on a quest to save the world from the evil sorcerer Shang Tsung, who fights using the souls of fallen warriors. Well, originally the game was supposed to be an action title starring a digitized version of Jean-Claude Van Damme, but that deal fell through. But who cares about that? When you're talking about Mortal Kombat, you are talking about one thing and one thing only. The gore. The sweet, lovely gore. The extreme violence of the game was both a blessing and a curse. To that point, no one had ever seen a video game use such realistic-looking graphics depicting brutality and bloodshed. It turned the game into a massive hit, and one of the most well-known fighting franchises of all time. But it also stirred major controversy, as parents and government officials complained about the over-the-top mayhem depicted in the game. One thing that really put it over the top were the gruesome finishers that you can use to kill your opponents at the end of fights. Due to threats from legislators and hearings decrying violent video games as corrupting society, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board was created, forcing all video games to be rated and for them to have their ratings showcased on the front of their covers. The home console versions of Mortal Kombat hit game stores on September 13, 1993, during a special event called Mortal Monday, in which they were released all at once. We will first examine the Super Nintendo version. Developed by Sculptured Software, Mortal Kombat opens up with two choices: Tournament and Options. In the option menu, you can choose the gameplay mode, which is with or without weapons, music on or off, why would you choose off, difficulty level, handicap, and button configuration. Mortal Kombat uses a 5-button layout: 2 punches, 2 kicks, and a block button. Now, some disclosure. We are more used to games in which you have to press backwards on the directional control pad, so having a block button took a while to get used to. So there were times when we forgot all about it. So when you fight the Brotherhood of Gaming at MK, remember we're very offensive heavy. You have 7 combatants to choose from, and you fight 7 matches, followed by 3 endurance rounds, where you have to fight 2 fighters back to back. And finally, you face off against Oh, hi, girl. No, wait, I'm not ready! Yeah, so Gore's pretty tough. Ugh. After surviving him, you finally go one-on-one with the evil sorcerer. What we found is that on the Super Nintendo controller, we seem to have more trouble performing our moves. It was like they only worked when they wanted to. Now, it may have been our controllers, we can't really verify that. But speaking of the fighting itself, each character has several similar moves, such as a roundhouse kick, a sweep, and of course the patented Mortal Kombat uppercut. They also have a unique set of moves, about 2 or 3. And they all have their own specific input commands that are very different from each other. In fact, when you start a fight, it may start off like this. Alright, I'm gonna go with my boy, Johnny Cage. Let's see, Johnny Cage. Ah, okay. Alright, let's see, lightning bolt, I'm gonna go back, forward, high punch. Jab, kick, down, forward, back, punch, high kick, really forward. Okay. Another thing is that each character has a throw move, and we hate them. Why? Because they take about a quarter of your health, so you can literally be thrown to death. It's annoying. The strength of the Super Nintendo version is the superior graphics and the sound effects. Between both versions, this port is closest to the arcade game. However, there is one thing that it lacks when compared to the Sega Genesis counterpart, but more on that a little later. Now, for the Sega Genesis version. This one was developed by Probe Entertainment. This game starts off with a weird screen which talks about the meaning of the word code. How a code can be ethical, or a code of honor, or a secret code. Secret. Actually, this is a fun little heads up to the player. When you press the start button, you have two visual options, game start and options. But if you enter a special code, you can get access to a third option, the cheats enabled menu. And the most important option in the menu is, of course, the blood code. The game operates similar to the SNES equivalent, 7 combatants, 7 rounds, 3 yada 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 yada, you know. But we found that the second controllers were a little easier to operate. But with less buttons to use, high punch and low punch are both operated by the same button. Either way, we found it easier to do our moves in the game. Again, it just might be us, but it was something that we did notice. Now compared to the Super Nintendo version, the graphics and the sound effects are indeed a step down, but it's not all that noticeable, especially when you consider that this version of Mortal Kombat has color. Nintendo was worried about its family-friendly image and wanted to keep itself as safe as possible, so when they agreed to bring MK to its system, they edited it as much as possible. The blood was replaced by sweat, and the finishers were made a little less drastic. But Sega saw this as an opportunity, so they included the blood code, and it was a very smart move. The blood and the gore is what makes Mortal Kombat unique from other fighting games, like Street Fighter for example. And so, the pure spirit of Mortal Kombat is more closely captured by the Sega Genesis one. Needless to say, this is the one we prefer. Mortal Kombat has managed to carve out its own niche in video game history. Whether you're a fan of it or not, there is no denying it. And it all started with this one right here. Well, there you have it, our personal view on Mortal Kombat. Which version do you prefer, the Sega Genesis one or the Super Nintendo? The choice is yours. Make sure to leave a comment down below to let us know. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and also, if you want, you can always donate to our Patreon. It helps us keep this little thing called the Brotherhood of Gaming going. For TVOG, I'm Eugene Morris. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, keep on gaming.